introduce yourself and give your info?
My name is Jessie Gaye Scoresby Brinkman. I was born in Idaho Falls, Idaho, to Alvin Moroni Scoresby and Martha Wilson. I was born in 1938 in Idaho Falls. I said that already. And I lived in Iona for all my growing up years in the same house. It didn't have an address when I was first born, but now it's on Free Avenue. I was the fourth child of 6 children. I had an older sister, Ann, and 2 brothers, David and Jim, and Lynn and Genevieve were younger than me. And we all lived happily in our little house with occasional fighting and lots of work to do. We always were working.
Do you have any memorable birthdays as a kid?
No, not really. I don't remember even getting a gift for my birthday. I must have, but I don't remember any birthdays.
So who ruled the roost among the kids?
Well, Anne tried to. She was the oldest, and she wanted everything her way, and she tried to make us all go along with what she wanted, but it worked for a little bit, and then after a while it didn't work anymore, which frustrated her and made her angry.
So how did that end up?
Well, we just grew up and everybody did their own thing, kind of.
Your brothers
didn't try to take over?
Well, take over
or rule
leadership?
No, actually, I don't remember that they did. David was really quiet and reserved and very nice. Jim was more assertive and more aggressive, and he used to tease us all very much, me especially. He used to take off his dirty socks at night and throw them in my face, which I took for a while, and then I started throwing them back, and he quit. I hated to touch them though because they smelled so bad. But he teased me a lot until I quit reacting to his teasing, and then he stopped teasing.
So, when you did have a chance to play?
Oh, we played quite a lot, actually. We played a lot of games indoors in the winter. We had a whole stack of games that we played. I really liked games, and I was good at playing them. And we had a good time. Our favorite was Make a Million, which was a card game. Was kind of like, I don't remember the name of the game. But anyway, you bid your hand and tried to make that amount, and whoever got to $1 million first won the game. And then we had lots of board games, and we also tied quilts in the winter. A lot of times we were snowed out of school. We couldn't get to high school, so we tied quilts. Mother put quilts together, and sometimes she didn't have any batting for the middle, so she used old coats. And they were the heaviest quilts you've ever seen. And
you just cut a coat into squares?
Just into pieces and fit it all together. And then when you tied it, then you tied the pieces in. And they were put on the boys' beds. Their bedroom was upstairs, and I don't think the heating worked very well up there. And they were always cold, so they got the heavy blankets. I don't know how they turned over though, because they were really heavy. We had to change their sheets, so it was hard for us to...
The girls had to change the boys' sheets?
Yes. The boys were favorites at our house. They were special because, I don't know why, just because they were boys and they could do work, and girls were kind of...
Farm hands, and the girls weren't farm hands. So.
Yeah, well, we did do farm work. I used to drive tractors and trucks to help haul the hay, and I cultivated the beets and raked hay. So one of the boys or dad would cut the hay, and then I would rake it into rows, and then they would bale it. And then we would drive the truck along. Beside the bales, we had a thing that would drive along right on this side and pick up the bales, and they'd go up on the back of the truck, and Lynn would stack them, and we'd make the biggest loads we possibly could. And then we'd have to be really careful when we drove home so that it didn't tip over, because occasionally a load would tip over. And right as we went in our driveway, there was a big dip, and so we had to be really careful to go slow down in the dip and then up again, so we didn't tip over the load of hay. And then we had to take it back in the down yard and stack it. We had another thing that went from the load of hay to the hay stack, and we'd load the bales on the thing, and yeah, we girls would put the bales on the carryover thing, and then Lynn would stack them in a stack by the cattle. And that was a hard day's work, hauling the bales of hay. And then one summer the boys were gone, and Dad wanted me to cultivate the beets, and I wasn't very good at driving the tractor down the row because I had never done it before. And so you're really cultivating about 6 or 8 rows of beets all at the same time. So if you make a mistake and jig over here, then it digs out all 8 rows of beets. And we were supposed to put fertilizer on it, and I couldn't lift the bag, so Genevieve rode with me and helped me lift up the fertilizer to fill up the containers to put on. And we only did that once, and I think we had a really small crop of sugar beets that year, so I wasn't invited to go back, which was fine with me. But when I was little, we hoed beets. We had rows that must have been half a mile long. And you'd have to walk all along them and hoe out the weeds and thin them, because some of them would be growing too close together. Fortunately, I didn't have to do that too often either. And then there was another job where the farmers up on the hills raised wheat, and they would let us bale the leftover straw. And so I would ride on what was a slip behind the baler. The bales would fall out. It was like 6 boards, about 6 inches wide, that were all tied together, except they were just tied in the front, and the back end kind of was loose. When the bales came off, then I would pick them up and put them on the back and stack them into stacks of like 9 or 12. And then I had a big stick that I just pushed down in the dirt, and it would push them off. And they would sit out there until somebody came to load them up. I was invited to load them up once too, but I couldn't work the machine. It was one of those things that had a forklift on it, and you had to do it up and then do it down, and you had to put it underneath and lift them up and take them over to the truck, then put it down. But I couldn't coordinate the ups and downs, so my dad excused me. I was disappointed when I couldn't do what he wanted me to do. Couldn't do it very well, because that was one of my things, was to try to keep up with the boys. Being right there in the middle of them, I wanted to be able to keep up with them, and I played football with them. I was the 4th football player. So
your 2 sisters didn't play football?
No, they didn't, but I did. I was more athletic than either of them, more active probably. We used to ride our bikes all the time. I had my friend Darla that lived in the next house over. Well, actually, Anne got a bike for Christmas, but by then she was really too old, and she didn't really want the bike. She wanted to be able to drive, so the bike became mine. But Darla and I rode all over Iona on our bikes and investigated all the neighbors and had a lot of fun on the bikes. And one time we went to Idaho Falls to shop. We got new swimming suits. We were very daring. We got 2-piece. Hers was blue and mine was red. And we decided that we would show off for all of the city. So towards evening, we put on our swimming suits and drove around Iona, showing ourselves off on our bikes. And when we got home, we paid for it because we were covered with mosquito bites. So we learned not to be too prideful.
You didn't have to teach that modesty too hard to you. You learned it on your own.
Yeah, well, and prideful. That took.
Well, it's not like a review revealing suit like today.
No, no. No, it had a little skirt. About this much of the belly was showing, was all it was. It was acceptable swimsuit wear in those days.